Welcome to Inside Style. I'm your host, George Worrell, and thank you for tuning in today. On this episode of Inside Style, we're joined with Rick Snyder, who left behind a thriving legal career to embrace a new chapter of craftsmanship and creativity. He is the founder of Magpie Reclamations in Delray, a section of Alexandria. Rick gives discarded materials a second life, much like what he did in his own career. We shall explore how style isn't just what we wear or what he wears, it's what he lives, works, and designs the world around you. Rick!
George.
It is so good to have you in the studio.
Cheers. Thank you so much for having me. This is just a real pleasure.
I stumbled onto your shop.
That's right.
In Delray, which
and I happen
love.
to be there.
You happen to be there.
Yeah.
And I always say, when I go to a place and I feel that I could live there, was amazing. It was a small shop, and one of your staffers came out and greeted me, and it was just really lovely. So let's start. Where are you from originally?
Yeah, so I'm from Austin, Texas, originally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Born and raised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was how was it growing up there?
Austin's a great time. You know, it's grown a lot and changed a lot now.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, it was much smaller, much sleepier. Live music capital of the world.
Okay.
Tons of live music.
Okay.
Yeah, lots of outdoorsy stuff going on. Yeah, it was a great place to grow up. Ultimately.
So you started after college. What made you think about a legal career?
Sure. So my background is international relations. That's what both my undergrad and my master's are in.
Okay.
And then I actually was part of the AmeriCorps Vista program, a great program that I did for a year, and I was doing refugee resettlement work there in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And got to work with that community, that population of folks, and that had a lasting impact on me and kind of my career trajectory. So my motivation to go into law school was to continue to work with that community specifically and serve that community. Yeah.
So you started with a mindset of just helping and working with community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and particularly like in international and a diverse community.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where did that take you after law school?
Yeah, so after law school, it took me here. It took me here to the D.C. area, to the DMV. I moved to Alexandria, Virginia in October of 2020 and started working as an immigration attorney. Yeah.
How was that? Let's talk about that a bit.
Yeah. So peak COVID, right? Not an easy time to break into any career field at that time. Lots of folks struggling, including myself. It was a challenge for me, both personally and professionally. And it didn't work out for me, and that's okay, right? It didn't work out for me. Then I was kind of job hunting around in early 2021.
Okay.
Again, hard time to be on the job market. Many folks were on the job market at that point, right? I think a lot of people can maybe relate to this. So, but still had to pay the bills, right? Still had to pay the bills, and so. That's kind of where my vintage furniture kind of passion kind of blossomed and grew from is that period of time.
At that period of time.
Yeah.
But you were still, because you and I talked about it briefly before, you were still being able to do, your law to kind of pay off some of the things that, the expenses and all those kinds of things.
Unfortunately not.
Really?
Not. No, I, was really kind of actually the opposite. I was using my kind of side hustle of the furniture restoration to pay those bills, right? Which in the DMV are not cheap. So
anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, so I actually leaned into that as I was job hunting.
Well, what was that? Yeah. What was that to say this is something for a side hustle? Because that's you're talking about a passion.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
What led you?
It was one of those but for COVID things. It was that period of time. Also, they extended the deadline. So we're supposed to sit for the bar in July of 2020. They moved it back to August, and they moved it back to October. So folks got to live, folks got to eat, right? Unfortunately, studying for the bar does not pay the bills.
No?
No. Contrary to popular belief, it does not. So I had actually, had begun as I was studying for the bar, doing some furniture restoration work to live, right?
Well, where did you find that? How did you come on that skill? Where did that skill come from?
Great question. So, growing up for me in Austin, I did a lot of subcontractor work. I did, any manner of kind of summer jobs, right? My first job was at a sprinkler company. I worked doing window installation. I worked for subcontractors doing home renovation, stuff like that. So when in a pinch, I'm a Texas boy. I take my truck, take my tools, and I find something productive to do. Okay. Right. And up here, it ended up being furniture. It wasn't. My background is not in design. Right. Okay. I came into this space as like a total neophyte, and it's just blossomed and grown from there. It's been a really fascinating journey. Yeah. Was it some things that you kind of self-taught yourself? All self-taught. Yeah. Okay. So I had some background with some of the tools, things like that, but had done some like DIY stuff at the house, right? Okay. Like right? Like I think we've all like had that moment where we're like, you know what? I'm gonna paint that bookcase. Okay. Let's see what happens. Yeah, right. So like had some kind of background in it, not professional background in it. Okay. So very much self-taught in terms of the tools of the trade.
What was before the store that you saw that you could make money from what you were doing? What were you doing? Yeah. So founded Magpie Reclamations formally in May of 21. Okay. And we were fully online, right? Again, you think back to the dark days of early 21, where lots of social distancing still in place. A lot of brick and mortars had closed. A lot of folks were shopping online, right? And a lot of folks were also focusing on their homes and focusing internally. Yeah, because you were there all the time. Exactly. Yeah. You're home all the time, right? Perfect time to tackle some of these home projects. And improve your space, right? And so we were online. We were selling furniture on Facebook Marketplace, on Instagram. Started as an Instagram business, and then grew from there. Where were you finding your articles? Where were you finding things?
Also online, right? We were hunting around on the free pages and kind of just trying to track stuff down anywhere we could. I was also kind of back and forth to New York at that time, so I was getting some items up in New York as well, loading them up in the truck and bringing them down here to the DMV. So
how did you find? Did you live in New York?
Yeah, I was in New York briefly as part of that kind of studying for the bar, things like that, kind of like post-Philly law school. Yeah, exactly, a little transition period. But
so you transitioned. So what was it about what you were doing that set in your mind apart from other places and design and sustainable furniture? Yeah. What was it that you do or were doing?
So you've hit the nail on the head. Really, what we quickly realized and what we were witnessing both in New York and down here in the DMV is that you got a lot of flight out of the cities during that time, and you had whole like apartments worth of stuff that were going in the dumpster that were going out on the curb. And we were witnessing this, right? We were seeing it in real time as people moved, people with resources moved out of the city to get away from disease, right? Were scared, right, exactly. So, we were kind of witnessing all this waste, right? I remember being in Manhattan, being like a block off from the Met and driving down the street and seeing a piece of furniture. I picked it up, I put it in the truck, it was eye-catching. I looked it up, it was like a $12,000 credenza. And again, whatever, that's the price point online. Who knows if that's the true value of it, right? But, it's literally like you from where I was standing, you're looking at the Met, and there's just this incredible piece that was going to the dump. It was on its way, right? And, so it was very visually apparent to us that, hey, there's a gap here, right? Like there's something wrong here. Ultimately, this level of waste is problematic. And so it very quickly became my goal to come at it from that sustainable angle of how do we reclaim these pieces? How do we save these pieces, bring them back into people's homes, back into the secondhand economy, rather than just have them go to the landfill and end their journey there, right? So that's kind of what we've set out to do, and it's become really like one of the central pillars of Magpie Reclamations.
So is that part of it? So like finding stuff, and because I think we talked about too that some of the things you were trying to give away, or how did that business work in to what coming to purchase as well.
Totally, yeah. So we started as just retail, right? We were just finding pieces that were damaged or discarded, repairing those pieces, refinishing those pieces, and then bringing them back to the market, right? And we did a good job of that, right? We moved into brick and mortar space. We really leaned into the retail. What I realized over time, though, is that the retail piece was only serving kind of a small subset of the problem, right? Not every piece, one, right? We're resource limited by time and money and all these other sorts of things, right? But the other thing is, we were looking for ultimately like really cool pieces, right? Like high-end pieces that people would love and enjoy, that had a history, that were part of mid-century modern style and design, like part of the history and culture of our country, right? And because those are the pieces that were in demand, right? And
did you have to research this? How did you naturally know this? Like,
definitely.
So you're doing your passion, but you're still looking like what's new,
what's cool, what's interesting, right? Yeah, what are people into, right? And I just through my own personal design experience of designing my space, I was going through that same process at the same time. My first apartment that my first private space for me was in Alexandria. That was my first apartment that I ever got to just like fully design and style myself. So I was designing and filling my space. I was learning about things that I loved while also then sharing those with other folks through the business. Right?
I think what is amazing for me as a person that when I moved to DC back from New York, I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
Of course. And I thought I need to furnish my loft with things that I can see that I want to order online. And I went to Miss Pixie's around the corner from me.
Yes, an institution.
And Goodwood. And I think I bought one piece from like a new place, but everything else.
Sure.
Because not only was it just the price point, that was secondary.
Yeah.
What I found was the design, and the quality of the wood.
Yes.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the quality and the woods and how you identify it, and people that are going shopping for that are listening and watching?
Absolutely. Yeah. The quality and the wood. That's what I really let me nerd out here on that. I love that question. That's what makes it possible for me to do what I do, right? These older pieces, whether they're antique, like over 100 years old, or newer, right? Like a vintage piece, like a mid-century piece, still not new, right? 60, 70 years old in many cases. Those pieces were typically hand-built by artisans, and then into the middle part of the 20th century, they were still hand-built in factories, a lot of them in Virginia, some in North Carolina, but many of them here on the East Coast. And those pieces were incredibly well built, right? They're sturdy, they're made out of solid wood in some instances, some veneered wood, but ultimately they were so well built and designed that even once they're damaged, they can be refinished and restored and then brought back to the market where they can serve for another 60 or 70 years in your home, right? Yeah. So that the connection to the past, I think, is interesting. The particular things that were going on in our country and in our world at that period of time and how that was reflected in design, incredibly fascinating stuff. We could do a whole podcast just on that.
Yeah,
right?
no, I get excited about it. So, it's when you're looking at it, so is there a better wood? How would our listeners go about looking at something and say, is this maple? Is this mahogany?
Yep.
How do you, you know what I mean? Like grade it, or is there a grade?
Yeah, no, I mean, so we have an internal grading system for pieces, and part of it is what's it made of, and that system's 1 through 5. But this is just an internal thing for us, and what that basically means is a 1 is something that needs a little bit of work, but we really don't have to rebuild it to bring it back to the market. A 5 is something that's like really damaged. It needs to be fully either reimagined or rebuilt for it to be sold. So like we have a little ranking system for that internally. But as far as for the listeners,
when they're going shopping,
exactly. So when you're looking at vintage pieces, we lean into mid-century modern design. We have a lot of other offerings in the store. But within mid-century, you see 3 types of wood that pop up a lot that were very popular at that time. One of them is walnut, right? Walnut is rich and deep And it also has you have light walnut, you have dark walnut. There's a lot of different variations to it. Super popular in mid-century furniture. So you see a lot of walnut furniture. The second one you see, and my personal favorite, is rosewood, like Brazilian rosewood. Brazilian rosewood, it was incorporated in a lot of Danish modern and Scandinavian modern pieces.
What color?
Really dark blacks and reds.
Okay.
Right, really dramatic. There's even some blonde in there, but you look at them and it's just like the depth of color is kind of. You might look at it and like confuse it for like a mahogany.
Mahogany.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very red. Right.
Okay.
Rosewood. Yeah. Is somewhat descriptive. So. I love rosewood. I think it's beautiful. Doesn't match everyone's style, right? It's pretty heavy. It's pretty dark.
Is it easy to work with?
It's really challenging to work with, actually. Rosewood is really hard to restore. It's an oily wood, which means that it just presents some challenges for the refinisher. Walnut's a little easier to work with. But again, and then the third one that you really see a lot of, particularly in Scandinavian design, but also in American design, is teak furniture. And you see teak you think of teak like outdoor furniture because solid teak is super durable. Use it on like sailboats, right?
Okay.
Like teak is a really resilient and solid wood, but it's a very light wood.
Is it like a blonde?
It's a blonde color.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a blonde.
Because I'm imagining like a bamboo-ish or...
It's a little oranger, a little yellower than a bamboo.
Okay.
But also has quite a bit of variation. You can get some really dark teak wood. You can get lighter tones as well. So those are the three you see a lot in mid-century modern. You get mahogany tends to be associated more, and cherry, maple with more antique pieces. All beautiful and wonderful as well. I work with all those different types of wood also. So all of those are beautiful, right? To me, it's about finding what piece, like when you went out to Goodwood, when you went to Miss Pixie's, right? Like what piece, what piece spoke to you? What piece did you see? You're like, oh, I could see this in my home, right? And then you can kind of design a room around that or a space around that, and it creates this kind of anchor for you, right?
I actually bought us because I moved to a smaller space while I was looking for something, and I furnished my apartment around the sofa that I purchased.
There you go. Yep.
And everything else.
What color was the sofa?
Gray, like a pale gray.
Okay.
So then it was a lot of my color palette are oranges, are fall colors, rust, those kinds of things.
Really warm colors. Yeah.
So the artwork, everything has some of that color palette, but it's so eclectic. I love the word,
yes.
When things are eclectic and they just kind of go together.
Yeah.
How did your legal background assist you in any way in what you're doing?
No, great question. It's assisted me a lot, and in ways you would kind of never imagine, right? One thing about a law degree is, it certainly teaches you to look at the world in a certain way, and to analyze the world in a certain way, and to think critically about solving problems, right? The other thing about a legal career is it's super dynamic, right? People practice all different types of law. It touches every part of society and every part of our life. And so it's not a one size fits all thing, right? You have environmental law, you have immigration law, you have contract law, property law, all these sorts of things, right? So, I like to think that kind of diverse background, international relations as well, very diverse field, right? You're learning some geography, some history, some political science, some language. I like to think that all of those things serve me well, because ultimately, as a small business owner, my job is interacting with our community. It's interacting with our local culture, and contributing in a positive way to that. And if you're gonna occupy space within a community, doing that with intention, doing that with understanding and compassion, right? So I like to think that my unique journey has helped me get to that point, right? Where when you walk into Magpie, it is eclectic, right? It is this combination of all these different things.
But it's different rooms in a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So when you come in to the right, you have it reminded me of my grandmother's living room in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was really nice. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
There's a touch of modern and things like that. But, we talk about style and personal style is kind of the wavelength of this show.
Yeah.
What is your personal style that you contributed to your work that most people think, I don't really, but you do.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. I
not unlike yourself, it sounds like I really like warm tones. Speaking to the wood grain question, I have a lot of very rich, deep, dark colors. I'm a big fan of a leather sofa. Right, I have a deep brown leather sofa, some black leather. The other thing I like to incorporate into my space to kind of brighten that up is like different textures and materials. So like coppers and brass, right? Like some metal that is bright and shiny but still warm, right? And my favorite, my catchword with what I do in design is layering, right? Like I like to layer a space. I want you to be able to start at point A and your eye carries through to point B. And between those 2 points, there's like 10 interesting things to look at that, you might not look at separately and be like, oh, these things could go together, but you bring them together and there's a conversation there. Yeah. Like that's the fun part for me is like the mixing and the matching, and particularly blending history, right? Like history through art, like beautiful pieces of artwork, and then matching that up with furniture design, interior design. We play a lot both in our home and in the store with those concepts.
Are you looking when you hire? And so for me, when working as a stylist and an event planner, we had to what we call the eye and develop it.
Yep.
Are you looking for that too? Do you use your eye when you're picking out things and seeing the vision about what you're going to do with it?
Yes.
And the people that work for you, are you employing people that have that eye and can you, because it has to be something, yes, you can kind of bring it out, but it has to be there.
You have to be literate in that in some way, right? As far as the items that we pick out, I think almost everything that's in the store is something that I would happily have in my own home. There's a couple things that maybe are an exception to that, but it's not because they're not cool. They just don't necessarily match up with like my personal aesthetic, and that's okay.
Now, so let's talk about that for a second, because that's the harder part, I think, in what we both do and what people do, what we call it creative and arts and fashion and all those kinds of things, is being able to choose something that you wouldn't personally choose.
Totally. And it's an experiment, right? Like I'm dealing in vintage furniture and vintage home decor. Everything to some extent is a one-off. Sometimes we find the same thing and we're like, oh, I know that's the thing and it's exciting. But a lot of what we're doing is experimenting, right? And we are trying to take that vintage piece and find it a new home, right? And you might walk into my store and you might take a look around and like, it's a little store. You might not find the thing, right? But that's okay. Like go shop with my other vintage reseller friends rather than go just buy the thing at IKEA is kind of how I feel about it. But, so it is experimenting, right? And sometimes those experiments are successful and sometimes they're not. Regardless, we're still going to rehome that piece, right? So that's the challenge, and that's it's fun to wake up in the morning and try to solve that problem and figure out like, okay, like how can we make this thing work? I'll give you an example. I've got this funky bamboo etagere that's in the store right now. Big tall thing, bamboo and rattan. Not my thing. Beautiful piece, really cool. It's been there for a while. I think it's really quite cool. It doesn't match up with my style. Maybe I won't buy that again. You know what I mean? But like that's okay. You know what I mean? Like it is trial and error.
Yeah.
But it also could be someone will walk in the store and will see that piece and be like, "That's it. Like that's the thing." You know what I mean? And that's exciting, right? That's an exciting moment. So that's how I feel about the stuff. As far as the second half of your question about the people, I think we've got an awesome team at Magpie. I mean, ultimately, you have to be literate in vintage and things like that, but you got to be literate in people, right? I want folks to come in and feel welcome and feel like they can come in and chat and hang out and spend time in the space, and it's a friendly, inviting space, right? Because sometimes, we do a little cluttercore in there. It could be a little overwhelming, right? You might need someone to kind of help you kind of navigate the space, or you don't want to feel uncomfortable asking a question, all those sorts of things. So I really focus on folks who are literate in vintage, but more so are have that warm, welcoming kind of personality.
To know when to leave alone, when to answer, and I'm here if you need me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you, everybody now with everything that's going on, are changing careers and thinking about different things. Do you have any thoughts or not unlike the word regret, but do you like how do you feel about your career choice?
No,
change.
Totally fair question. Like any decision, right? Like you just have opportunity costs with these things, and there's a lot that I miss about being a lawyer. First and foremost, my clients, right? Like I loved working with my clients. I worked with, refugees who have dealt with some of the most challenging situations that life can present. I've worked with the survivor community through human trafficking and other heavy stuff, right? And working with those folks and helping those folks, like I'm still very passionate about that, right? That passion has not left me. You know what I mean? And there is an element, of regret. I think that's okay to say, right?
Okay.
And it's all right. You know what I mean? As we transition through life, through different periods of our life and careers, there's going to be elements of regret, right? We can all think of that friend we don't talk to anymore. You're like, man, I really wish I still, right? Like that's okay, right?
Yeah.
That is part of life and it's part of growth.
It moves.
Now that being the case, my goal is to still figure out how to help people where they are. And right now, I think we are doing that in a really cool and creative way. I'm not doing public service in the way that I was, but I think we do offer a public service in that we are trying to help you, make your home a reflection of who you are and make it a safe space for you and a creative space, right? An enjoyable space and a space of love and that you can live your life in, right? And helping people on that journey is rewarding in its own right, Yeah.
I love the word sustainability.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
It's plastered all over my website. And for
it is.
Good, yeah.
I mean, it was new to me, like I guess within the last 5 years that I really, really started to get the meaning of it.
Yeah.
And repurposing. I've always loved, I'm from Atlantic City, New Jersey, and growing up, I think right after Christmas in January at the convention center, they would have these vintage shows.
Yeah, cool.
And my parents and I would go, more so my father and I, and we would see all of these old things. And, buying and purposing all of these wonderful items and the things that you have in your store that people are going to have. They've already been for 40, 50 years in some cases.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to pass that on.
Yes.
How does that feel to work to say that this piece that, Antique, you ever watch Antiques Roadshow?
Oh, totally. Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
And you see all of these pieces.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you to be able to sell pieces that people can pass on or gift to other people's family members?
We talk about that kind of in terms of like heritage furniture, right? And I think it's an amazing feeling, right? I get to source something that I think is really cool. I then get to take that piece. I get to work on it in my workshop. Oftentimes putting 5 to 10 hours into something, which then I have a personal connection with that piece as a craftsman, right? And then I get to put it in my shop and have lovely people like yourself come in and appreciate it and love it and then take it to their home, right? That's a really personal thing when you think about it. And I think it's just it's hard to quantify. It's hard to put in words, which is obviously the medium we're in. But it's a wonderful feeling. It's an enriching, soulful kind of experience to me to be able to do that. And it's intimate. You know what I mean? I mean you're. And again, same with you're asking about the folks who I employ, same with my delivery team. We do come into your home, right? And we bring that piece and we place it for you and we are grateful for the opportunity to do so. So again, just showing up intentionally and understanding that our customers are trusting them with a part of their home, their sacred safe space is super important to us, right?
So in closing, I mean, I could, you're going to come back.
Yeah.
But
let's talk about sustainability more. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone going into your field, or what should one look for when they're going to vintage stores? Aside from the style and things, is there something that you would say, a little, maybe one or two things that they should?
Yeah, I mean, one, if you're not going to vintage stores regularly, please do, right? Whatever that is, right? Even if it's just the Goodwill or if it's something more curated, there's treasures in there, and it's so fun to go do the adult treasure hunt and find the thing that speaks to you. You know what I mean? Especially doing it with family and friends, right? It's such a fun activity. We do a vintage market in Alexandria every month, every second Saturday, and there's like 60, 70 vendors, right? So it's more than just one store, right? It's a community of folks. It's clothing, it's furniture, there's so much to it. So find the thing that speaks to you as a customer, as a client, and go hunt for that thing, right? Like you can. There's so many different ways you can take it. You can make it your own, right? Like vintage is. I mean, there's so many different eras. There's so many different designs. I mean, it's this endless bucket, right? Yeah. It's so fascinating to kind of look back on our history and then find the pieces of our history that resonate with you. You know what I mean?
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. And how can our listeners reach out to you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find us on Instagram at Magpie Reclamations. Okay. Also, our website is magpiereclamations.com. It's pretty much just Magpie Reclamations.
I love it.
If you type that in, you'll find us. Yeah.
I can't wait to our next trip, and I can't wait for you to come back. And thank you for tuning in to Inside Style. I am George Worrell, and remember, real style starts with being comfortable in your own skin. We'll see you next time.